The reason I am down here tonight doing this live video is to ask Brian Manning, who TV6 broadcast an interview from. Brian Manning told the nation that his father, for different reasons, had to seek medical attention abroad. I am here tonight to ask Brian Manning, why you think our public hospitals are this bad, despite us spending $5 billion a year on it? Why do you think it is so? And who do you think is responsible? I want Brian to know that the only reason that his father had to go abroad to fix his heart and cut out his kidney and all the other things that Brian said that his father had to go abroad for. There's only one reason, and that's because the government of the day made a shit of public health. And the government and its friends used this hospital and all the other hospitals to steal money. And that is why this is the way it is. In the past 20 years, we've spent $100 billion on public health in Trinidad. $100 billion could buy a Caribbean island. $100 billion, just the past 20 years alone. We spent $100 billion, and I want you to look at this. And this is the best part of the hospital, the Port of Spain General Hospital. Up the road from here, about 100 meters, some party members got contracts to build a new $1 billion wing to this hospital, while this hospital is falling apart. When Patrick Manning was Prime Minister of the country, there was a study done. I have a copy of the study. It's fatter than the Bible, telling them why, if there is an earthquake in Trinidad and Tobago, this hospital would collapse. It's not set up for it, where the gas lines run and all of that nonsense. Forget all of that, because I don't want to get down into the technicalities. I just want to ask Brian Manning something. In fact, I want to explain Brian something. You see, when Keith Rowley's heart just nearly busts in his chest and they had to rush him somewhere, they rush him West Shore. You know why they rush him West Shore? Because West Shore have management. And the management job is to take the money that West Shore makes and spend it to make West Shore functional, professional, as good as it can be for patients like Keith Rowley, whose heart nearly busts in his chest. And when your heart nearly busts in your chest and you fall down on the ground and you hold your two big toe and you ball, they had to take you somewhere. And the somewhere that they took him was West Shore, not here. Because here don't have West Shore management. If here had West Shore management and $5 billion a year, here would be state of the art, like John Hopkins Teaching Hospital. But it's not. Here's a shithole. There are vines growing through the building. This is a shit of a hole. This is the Port of Spain General Hospital, the remnants of what the Queen built. And what the Queen built and the King before her were functional, real. Those parts lasted. The rest, pure shit. Through those doors is casualty. I don't think we have casualty anymore since COVID-19. Unless you have friends in high places. The point I want to make to Brian Manning, because suffering from a PNM education, I understand that. But Christ, on a cracker, he grew up in a house where a man was Prime Minister for nearly 20 years. And he don't know what Prime Minister mean? Brian, let me tell you what Prime Minister mean. Prime Minister mean management. Prime Minister means the buck stops here. Keith Rowley has been Prime Minister of this country for 6 years. And when his heart nearly busts in his chest, Keith Rowley should have been proud that there was a Port of Spain General Hospital or a Mount Hope or a San Fernando on his watch. But no, we're going to build hospital in Point Fortin, where I have been told the beams collapsing. They can't open it to the public because the work is so shoddy that the place is falling apart before they open. We're building in a Rima. We're going to spend $1 billion next door here. We can't run what we already have. We're using them for finances, friends and family to thief money, and then we're building more. For what? I have to go to the St. James Medical Center this week when the cancer patients are there and film them and show the public what cancer patients in this country go through in this hellhole that is Trinidad and Tobago because of the PNM. So when Keith Rowley's heart nearly burst in his chest this week, he had to put his forehead on the ground and thank all the gods in heaven that they had a West Shore in Trinidad. Because if they didn't have a West Shore in Trinidad and all they had was this shit, he did. West Shore saved his life. And that's how they have to say it. That they have to say thank God for West Shore. Because PNM, public health, in this country is so much shit that when the Prime Minister heart nearly bust in his chest this week, if they didn't have a West Shore, we wouldn't have a Prime Minister today. God bless West Shore. Brian Manning, in case you are too foolish to understand, in case your brain just there to keep your ears from fighting, let me explain it to you one more time. The management of the country is the government. The chief executive officer among all the executive officers is the Prime Minister. He hires the Minister of Health. He appoints him. The Minister of Health hires all the CEOs of the regional health authorities. This one, Port of Spain General Hospital, falls under Northwest Regional Health Authority. There is a CEO responsible for this. If he is screwing up, the Alsing's supposed to fire him. If the Alsing is screwing up, Rowley's supposed to fire him. Rowley not supposed to say, our public health is shit, I go in West Shore, and leave the rest of Trinidad and Tobago to catch the ass here. And when you, Manning, make excuse about your father and why your father had to go away, I want to tell you why your father had to go away. Because your father was a shithong. He was one of the worst prime ministers this country ever saw. His mission was to fool poor black people. He built a set of buildings in this country that they will never use. We will never get full value for. Scarborough Hospital, Napa, Sapa, Tapa. We will never, ever make back a cent on Taruba. All that crap is the legacy of Patrick Manning. And that's why he roasting in hell tonight. But when TV6 have to quote you talking to pull people heartstrings, I want to be the one to correct you. The reason Manning had to fly out of this country is because Manning and friends loot this country. And that is why, for the $300 billion we've spent on public health in this country, instead of having first world public health that the rest of the world running to, we have public health that people running from. Imagine that. Who you think responsible, Brian? Your mommy?